Back to another edition of Unprofessional with Becky Mollenkamp. I just had an amazing call with a client who runs a coaching agency. I love coaching coaches. And she mentioned that her work is her activism. And that means things are really hard right now with work. And I just really felt it in my bones because I feel the same way. And when that is true for you, there's really no escape during the day. You're not only experiencing what's happening in the world for yourself, but also through the work you do. It's like doubly or more intense. And if that is true for you, I just wanted to show up with this reminder that this is really challenging. It's really challenging to be someone whose work is their activism, especially right now. Like that is tough. And so if it's you, remember burnout is a very real thing. And it is very likely when you are in that state, when you are dealing with the world's events and having to take on or hold space for others who are also dealing with everything in the heaviness right now, which means you got to think about self-care. Think about scheduling time for rest, for rejuvenation, and for community in your calendar. We can't let those things go during times like these. What are the things that you need to care for yourself? Drink enough water, walk, do whatever physical activity helps. Be with others, share therapy, coaching. Find the things that help you at a time like this because when your work is your activism, there's no escaping it, and it's extra hard right now. And the other thing I just wanted to share is in the vein of the unprofessional series, for those who don't think of their work as their activism, I want to challenge you to think harder because the truth is there is really no separating politics from personal, politics from professional, or professional from personal. All of these things go hand in hand. And we're seeing it right now in the ways that politics are affecting all of us professionally and personally, and how those things all play together. And no matter what work you do, it is political. If you're the person who picks up the trash, that's incredibly political right now as we talk about who's responsible for maintaining the streets, right? For maintaining the landfills, for the environment, for paying folks, for worker pay, worker hours, minimum wage, unions. It really, if you're an educator, clearly it's deeply political right now. But honestly, in almost every industry, and if you're self-employed, if you're a business owner, it's becoming incredibly political. Just the decisions you make about the language you use on your website, when you're hiring, who you're hiring. So I would encourage you that if you're not thinking of your professional, your business, your work as part of your activism or entirely as your activism, think again because it is. And if you're not thinking of it that way, then there's probably a lot more you could be doing to show up as an activist for what's right, for humanity, for the change that we all need right now. And think about that. Challenge yourself to think about what are the ways that your work can be your activism, because we all need it to be right now. Forget the old ideas of it not being professional to think of politics and your work in the same sentence or same breath. That is not true right now. Not when you're in a fight for survival, when you're in a fight for democracy, when you're in a fight for literally the very lives of many of us. So I would challenge you to be thinking about that and think about how do you use whatever power and privilege you have with your profession, with your work to bring more activism into what you're doing. And if you do that, if you take up that challenge, also remember and care for yourself. It's super important. I'm going to share a link to a book I highly recommend about burnout. It's the Burnout book by the Nagoski sisters, because we all need to be really mindful of that cycle, the stress cycle they talk about in that book. Really, really important right now. Always important, but especially important now. So I highly recommend people also get that, whether you are already feeling that overwhelm and burnout, or if you're like just in the beginning process of exploring how your work can be your activism to avoid potential burnout in the months and years ahead that are going to be challenging. There's no two ways around it. So I recommend that book, and I hope that everyone thinks about that little prompt today. How is or can be my work How is or can my work be my activism? And how do I care for myself when and if it is?